All right, welcome. Hello. So we got a special little video here. One of the Decred team members made up. Get that playing there. So we're on Bitcoin block 448225. See the network's humming along. Got no backup in the mempool right now. As usual, our sponsor is Bittrex. So next generation crypto exchange. You know, if you want to trade some Decred, they have probably the most active market on their site. And and speaking of Decred, we're happy to have them on the show today. I know lots of people have been waiting for a while to hear more about the project. So we have Jake on the show, who is, I guess, our CEO.
Yeah. I'm really the project organizer, and I think at least until we can get everything fully decentralized, I am the de facto project lead. Cool. And I'm the CEO of company Zero LLC that does most of the development work for Decred.
All right, and let's see, we got some other people on the call. So hi, I'm Alex. I'm your intrepid host. I'm here with Jordy.
Jordy, also known as Not So Fast Crypto on Twitter.
Yeah, my great co-host, and we have another former guest on the show, Derek from Tux Exchange.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks for joining us, Derek.
Thanks for having me.
So we'll probably get our live audience from Decontrol in Vancouver on shortly here. But Jake, do you think you can tell us a bit about what Decred is?
Sure thing. Decred is basically an outgrowth of a number of ideas that I and a handful of developers shared over the past 2 to 3 years, where some of these people had worked in the alt space prior, but it really came down to the fact that we saw Bitcoin as lacking some very important features that we thought we should add, namely that as much as decentralizing a shared ledger really matters, you also need to start to think about, well, how are we going to manage that ledger, and how are we going to deal with sovereignty within that project? And Decred is really an answer to that, to those kinds of problems. The question of who's really in charge of the blockchain, who's really in charge of the decision making. And our experiences with Bitcoin have indicated that really starts to matter at a certain point. And so in order to sort of build the infrastructure out for that, we had to do an altcoin. And that's sort of how Decred started in terms of where we were coming from when we conceived of it, and then the proof of work, proof of stake hybridized system that we came up with was really the answer to how do we solve these governance and sort of management problems that occurred with Bitcoin and presumably with other cryptocurrency projects as they get larger.
Well, that's definitely a problem that we're seeing now with Bitcoin is rather than the network being at risk of any influence, there seems to be a political issue of not being able to influence the network in any way.
Yeah, everybody has veto power, and they all use it every single chance they get.
Yeah.
But so you guys actually worked a bit on some Bitcoin code base. So before, like BTC Suite is some of your former project?
Yeah, so it's still ongoing, but we haven't been putting as much energy into it lately as we were previously. I mean, back in 2011 or 2012 is when I started to get interested in Bitcoin because, I've run a number of other businesses over the years, and when you have a problem with a bank, the system of the question of who really controls the funds and who controls the money really does become a lot more concrete in ways that, if you just have a normal, personal bank account, you don't typically run into these things where it's a question of, I can't get access to my money or my funds have been restricted. But, once it happens to you, the question of, well, who's really in control of the money becomes a lot more important. And, that drew me to Bitcoin. And then in early 2013, we gave, participating with the Bitcoin core development process a shot. And that didn't work out quite the way we liked. So we decided to do the whole thing over from scratch in early 2013. And that's how BTC Suite started.
Cool. So like it's it's your own version of, I guess, a Bitcoin wallet, right? But it's written in Golang. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's more than just a wallet. It's the full node implementation. So it has all the consensus rules in it. It now has all kinds of integrated regression tests, so that all of the various forking conditions are tested at least at first pass, similar to the Bitcoin Core project. And the consensus node is called BTCD, and then there's a separate daemon called BTC Wallet. That's the wallet process, and that's used for things like managing private keys and public keys, and whatever it is, HD chains and so on.
So that's kind of different than, like, say with Ethereum, how we have the Golang implementation, and then there's also Parity is the other one, and they can actually both do their own consensus on the network. Is your client actually doing consensus of any sort?
Yes. BTCD does the full consensus, consensus rules evaluation. We've actually ever since we started the project in 2013, there's been a variety of, fear, uncertainty, and doubt attacks that have been, pointed at us regarding, your consensus rules might have a bug in them and that could fork the network. So you shouldn't use your consensus rules. You should use the Bitcoin Core consensus rules. So it does the full evaluation. We don't punt on consensus and try to use, I think it's lib consensus, and we call it a lib. We don't use that because it's an enormous dependency. It's in C++, and then basically the cross-platform niceties of Golang go away. So there's a whole bunch of reasons we don't use the Bitcoin Core consensus lib. But we haven't forked in, I think, something like 2 years, or at least 2 years, more like 3 or 4.
So you got a pretty good adoption rate with it then.
Yeah, it's robust.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's robust. It's going decent. I mean, I wouldn't say we have a huge adoption amongst average desktop users or casual users, but amongst businesses, there are a number of businesses that base their products on BTC Suite. Cool.
So, are you guys implementing SegWit with it? Do you have signaling built in?
Yes. So the BIP9 signaling is built in. In fact, we're actually we're syncing over the BIP9 code currently to be used with our hard fork voting stuff, which we'll get to in a little bit. But the BIP9 signaling is in, and some of the soft forks are in, but we're not fully caught up with where Bitcoin Core is at, because our lead developer on the BTC Suite project, Dave Collins, is everything must be perfect when it goes into master. So it's it's challenging for Dave Collins to maintain this, when there's dozens of people working on Bitcoin Core.
Well, it's good to be a perfectionist in this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess moving on from BTC Suite, you guys started your own project, and you did probably one of the most interesting things I've seen for launching a new project. Like, you had an airdrop of coins for people, I guess, to sign up for.
Yeah. Do you have specific questions about that, or?
Well, yeah, I guess could you take us through like your thought process and how you guys launched the network, and what your reasoning for doing an airdrop versus like a straight mining? Okay, so I think there's really 3 paths that people typically take when it comes to launching a new coin. It'll typically you can do the ICO method. You can do the everyone freely mines method, and then what we thought, well, there's been other people who've done some sort of coin giveaway, but no one had executed it the way that we ended up executing it, exactly. So we ended up thinking that, listen, both of these options, if we open it up and then we just do the mining and there's no pre-mine of any kind, then it's very difficult for, basically it becomes a game for us as the developers of the coin to get, the coin after it's been launched. And then in the case of an ICO, there's this, heightened expectations on top of the fact that, I feel like you're really sort of, you're towing the line in terms of what the SEC considers to be a public offering. So we decided in the case of an ICO that, it
legally a bit questionable. And we also didn't like it because if we, like, let's say we take on a whole bunch of external investment and then the product sucks, then people are upset, duly. And I don't want to put people in that position. So we figured that meeting in the middle and going, we want to get coins into the hands of some people who are interested before the project launches, but we don't want to sell them the coins. So we figured, well, the next best thing we can do is give away a whole bunch of coins.
Well, it's definitely one of the most interesting ones I've seen. Like, I think there's been a couple other airdrops. The only one I can think of is Aurora coin, but that one didn't go so well.
Yeah, that was kind of like the pioneer. It didn't go so well. I would hazard a guess to say that the Decred airdrop was the most successful, the most generous in terms of the value that each user got and received and just for signing up for the project. And compared with the other airdrops that have been done since then, I mean, most of them are just setting the stage for a pump and dump, and like they're for altcoins that had no other reason for being except for kind of a cash grab and to let everybody else think that there was they were getting something of value, and really they were just their attention was being bought for nothing else except for hoping that they would actually buy in more. So really, I can't think of an airdropped plus mining cryptocurrency that's had more success with distribution than Decred. I'm really, really happy with how you guys did it and how it worked out.
Yeah, it seems like it went over pretty well with most of the people who participated. I mean, it's inevitable. Some of the people who participate are going to just want to, get the coins and sell them right away and be like, oh, look at me, I got a Bitcoin, and, sort of end it there.
Well, the other function of it too is it allows there to be like a market established rather quickly, because you have a buy side and a sell side that is a fairly reasonable book, where you're not going to get a scenario like we saw with Zcash, their launch.
Yeah.
Didn't it spike at something like $4,000 a coin or something initially?
3,300 Bitcoins per Zcash. That was just like under supply, like to the extreme, and a whole bunch of hype and demand. So the cool thing about Decred was you had buyers meeting sellers with a lot of liquidity. Like there was a lot of people who, like you said, did get that airdrop to dump for a bunch of Bitcoin that they could brag about for free. And there was equally as many buyers willing to meet on those terms and take advantage of the fact that maybe they could buy a greater stake in the project at a deep discount from those people that were just indiscriminately dumping. So I think you guys got all that out of the way in trade on Blue Trade, basically on the first day, and then it was over and done with. No crazy fanfare, no yelling and screaming and tearing of hair, and trade commenced. You could get back to work on what really mattered, which was development. So yeah, kudos for that. I think that was really well done.
What I think is interesting is that the way you look at it, it seems like it was calculated and planned, but it totally wasn't in that sense. We were just trying to go, okay, legally we can do A, B, and C, so we're going to choose our from our legal options, and then try to be fair and equitable with the people who participated. But it's funny that just like you point out, that it ended up leading to like a nice liquidity situation for for the people who were interested in the project.
And by having distributed some of the coins initially, wouldn't that have provided some security to the network in the staking aspect?
Oh yeah, most definitely. That was that was actually a consideration that we did make, in that we wanted to distribute the coins so that other people can basically could get right out there and buy the tickets, and start staking early on,
right?
As opposed to
helping to secure the network.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean that was a real important step. Is at first, like right when everything launched, people were kind of clueless on how to stake, and once they once the stake mining started picking up, it ended up working out very nicely. But like the first few days, it was kind of sort of a rough beginning. It was I was worried not enough people would stake, but that ended up working out just fine.
So we got our live audience in here, and I guess just get them up to speed. Hey, Kiko, what's up?
What's up? I'm just straightening up.
So we were just talking a little bit about the team's implementation of a Bitcoin wallet called BTC Suite, and then talked about the crowd sale, airdrop, sorry, not crowd sale, where some free coins are given away to help kind of feed the network. But this might be a really great opportunity to talk about what really sets Decred apart. And let's hear more about, I guess, the hybrid proof of work and proof of stake, and kind of how that is not only unique, but it provides security to the network, and I guess adds some sort of governance aspects too.
Sure. So the original idea with proof of work, proof of stake came from what is it, MC2 coin, which is Memcoin 2, which was a white paper that was proposed back in 2013, and the proposal basically, what was very interesting to me about the proposal is I read it and I met the author, and what was very interesting to me was that it killed multiple birds with a single stone by adding this hybrid proof of work, proof of stake. The way I see it is that proof of work is really the best known working system for making decentralized decisions and timestamps that we have available right now. But that said, there are these obvious flaws, like that you can't make distributed decisions beyond what should be in the ledger with that system. It works great for, the basics of going, okay, we're going to make a distributed timestamp, let's stamp the blocks, and then we have a time ordered system and transactions go in a certain order. But then when you start asking the harder questions, you go like, well, the proof of work system, it doesn't really give any representation to people who are not miners. So that in a proof of work system, the miners have all the say because they're the one minting the blocks and performing the proof of work. But then you start to ask questions. If you hold 10% of the Bitcoins, I think you should have some say in what's going on in Bitcoin as a currency, but that isn't how Bitcoin's set up. So, the proof of work, proof of stake hybridization allows for us to use what we know works, which is proof of stake, and then bolt on the, I'm sorry, I think I said that wrong. We're going to use what we know what works, proof of work, and then we're going to bolt on another layer that allows us to start to make distributed decisions. And then we're going to basically turn that into multiple things. The same way the proof of work acts as a distributed timestamp, an emission method, and a way of making the decisions fully distributed so anyone can participate. What we did with proof of stake is that proof of stake serves to it serves to I'm sorry, I'm spacing for a second. Okay, so proof of stake serves to do three things. There's voting that occurs. So basically, in a democratic system, typically you want people to vote. But part of the problem with voting is that a lot of people don't want to vote. So we take voting, which is something that people should want to do. We take staking, which is locking your coins for a period of time so that you don't waste, so that you're not, at the casino gambling with the coins. And then we combine that with a subsidy to basically incentivize people to not go to the exchange and then, gamble their coin, gamble all day, and to vote in the system so that we have some sense of sovereignty going on, and that people can create a consensus through a method other than voting with, a specialized piece of computer hardware that lives somewhere in China in the mountains.
So like you guys have a system though where staking is not just you're getting a reward, you're actually bidding on, I guess, like tickets or kind of there's some other, I wouldn't call it a currency, but you guys have kind of a market internal within the consensus protocol, right?
Sure. Yeah. So the way we figured it is that as an ongoing process, just in the same way as proof of work, not everyone can say, look at the work I've done on every block. It's essentially a lottery where basically everyone's trying to solve a computational problem at the same time. it's a dice roll. Some people solve it sooner than others, so they get representation through that solution. And then with proof of stake, it's similar in the sense that there are these tickets, and then the tickets go into a lottery, and then the lottery is random, so that every block there's 5 of these tickets, and when they get drawn, you have an opportunity, if you're a ticket holder that's been called, you have an opportunity to exercise your sovereignty and go yes, no, and vote on things. So that in that sense, it is very similar to proof of work. It's just that instead of solving a hard computational problem, what you're doing is you're performing a proof of sacrifice by locking coins and then being randomly chosen, to have representation based on that locking. And then just like you were pointing out, there's the ticket price, which is, so with proof of work, right, there's the diff or difficulty. And with tickets, there's a number called SDiff or, stake difficulty. And what happens with stake difficulty is that we have a target size of the ticket pool. So the ticket pool should be, the target size is 4,960 tickets. And then, if the ticket pool starts to grow in size a whole lot, what will happen is that the SDiff algorithm adjusts the price of tickets up so that it discourages people from buying, and then basically effectively drives demand down for tickets so that the ticket pool adjusts itself in size. So if the ticket pool goes up to say 45,000, the price of tickets.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Okay, I think we're started. Sorry, you were saying the ticket difficulty?
Yeah, so the ticket difficulty adjusts up and down based on the size of the ticket pool and the price history of tickets. So the SDiff algorithm essentially looks backwards to see what price tickets have been, and then uses I want to say it's an exponential moving average to give a price of tickets that it thinks will basically sculpt the size of the ticket pool so that it's roughly 40,960 tickets. So that's why the ticket price goes up and down over time. In fact, I mean, something that we can't change right now, or we can't change yet, is the SDiff algorithm. So because the SDiff algorithm is hardwired and it's part of the consensus code, we can't change it right now, but in the future we have plans to modify it a little bit because we feel like the ticket price oscillations are a little too out of control. For example, one period you might have 20 tickets that are 26 coins, and then the next 12-hour period later there are 140 coins. So we're trying to smooth that out, but we really can't do anything about it until we can start making hard fork changes with hard fork voting.
Okay. I think covers it. I don't know. You got any questions about the consensus?
Yeah, no, not really. Just it's a pretty high bar to jump over, even for people who were sort of averagely technically inclined like me. It took me a while to figure out how to stake properly, how to join a pool actually, and get everything working. So I'm sure, like at the beginning, it was a discovery process and a steep learning curve for everybody, but now I get the sense that everybody who wants to be staking Decred is, and it's good because you're at least propelling the generation of new coins at about an equilibrium level between proof of work and proof of stake. I guess the price decline of it being staked to death as the stakers gained advantage over stuff, and they were using that advantage to profit by selling. That seems to have sort of wrapped up, and you've achieved another sort of equilibrium of the processes that the network supports, the voting and the staking and the proof of work security. So yeah, no, I think it's at a good point, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you take it in terms of getting staking and joining stake pools and sort of graphic user interface, making it more user friendly so everybody else can sort of jump on in.
Yeah, so you just mentioned staking and the and the user interface for it is that you're totally right to point out that most of it is still text based. There is some limited ability using GUIs, in particular Prometheus that's Windows only. You can use that to stake, but in this next release 080, we're going to be adding tighter integration with stake pools, so that, for example, you can connect to a stake pool, and it'll go back and forth and do all the setup for the stake pool in Prometheus using just a few clicks. So basically, you transpose an API key into your GUI, and then click a couple buttons, and then you have your stake pool setup done in Prometheus. And then similarly, we're working on the same thing on our new cross-platform GUI called Decrediton, which uses Node.js, Electron, and React. And we're not sure we're going to be able to get it all in for 080, but at worst, it would be next release for those same features to show up in Decrediton.
Cool.
Now, you mentioned stake pools a couple times. Like, what is the benefit of joining a pool for staking rather than just staking solo?
Staking, there's a couple considerations here. One of them is sovereignty. I mean, sovereignty isn't something that most people think about in the context of these, of cryptocurrencies. But the way to think about it is this: is that a stake pool is a pool that basically votes your tickets for you if you are not online. So there's people like me who have, a small fleet of computers online 24/7, 365. And if you're one of these people, you can solo stake without much risk. You just have a computer up, it runs, it stakes, and then you need to make sure that your network uplink is active most of the time. However, there's a lot of people who don't have, like spare computers sitting around on the internet all day. And as such, if you're one of those people, and you're maybe more on the go, you got a laptop, you have a phone, but you don't have like a desktop machine that sits at home, using a stake pool is a better bet for you, because basically it guarantees that you can proxy just the voting part of your ticket to a stake pool, and then basically the stake pool will vote your ticket when it's called. Otherwise, you basically miss your vote, and then you don't get your subsidy. So that's sort of the utility of a stake pool and why people would use it. And then, currently as stake pools exist, it's a little rough to set them up. But once they're set up, it's kind of a set it and forget it operation, where once it's going, you don't have to set it up again.
Okay. Well, I'll take this moment to tell everyone about one of the bigger fans of the show, the Ubix Slack. They're also called the Jumbuck stake pool. But if you look in the Slack links down below, you can learn a little more about setting up your own staker with their stake pool. And there's a lot of technical people that can kind of help out with that. But you guys are kind of, I guess, pioneering this this sort of aspect of hybrid. Like, we've never really seen a hybrid like this before. And I think even the Ethereum project now, as they're moving towards going to proof of stake, they're doing a hybrid approach as well. And it sounds like they're going to have similar aspects of it. At least I remember seeing some sort of Twitter bout about it.
I think, something that's a bit challenging in the cryptocurrency space is that there's a lot of people who want to, do new things, whether it's us or other groups. And when you lay your plans out there and you go, I'm going to do A, I'm going to do B, there's bound to be somebody, and in some cases, it's just straight up coincidence that, someone was already doing A, even though you're working on A, in private. And, my sense is that Ethereum has the luxury of having a lot of money and the ability to choose what they want to add in, because basically Vitalik can hard fork however he sees fit, and his supporters will follow him. So I feel like there's definitely a certain element of the game where people will borrow from each other or take content from each other and not really give attribution. I've experienced a fair deal of that in the context of BTC Suite and Bitcoin Core.
Really? That's, I get that a lot of stuff out there is open source, and attribution is kind of the number one thing between doing something above board or below board. So that strikes me as kind of a sad thing that somebody took your work without attribution. That's the whole point of open sources, to link back.
Yeah, it's definitely a little disappointing. I've experienced this with other projects as well. But what it really comes down to is that when a larger project appropriates either ideas or content or code from smaller projects really don't have any sort of countermeasures they can take other than complaining in some public forum. So, I'm just sort of resolved to the fact that it happens. And, if someone else happens to show up with an identical or substantially similar hybrid, proof of work, proof of stake system down the road, I wouldn't be surprised.
Now, the tickets that you're actually purchasing for consensus, they're helping with voting on, I guess, hard forks. If you guys want to do a protocol upgrade, do you basically say at this block, all ticket holders should vote on this chain and even if the miners don't switch, like what kind of happens in that scenario? Can you kind of maybe talk us through what a hard fork scenario looks like?
Sure
with
thing.
These stakers? Yeah.
So what we've decided to do is that the Bitcoin project decided on the BIP9 method for basically approving soft forks. Now, the way that goes is that there's a version that's attached to a particular, full node daemon. And then as people upgrade, there's going to be a rolling window of blocks that are of a certain version. So let's say we're on version 1, people start upgrading, and then you start seeing version 2 blocks. And then eventually you hit a threshold of version 2 blocks, and then and then there starts to be enforcement where you reject version 1 blocks, and then eventually you flip over and everybody's on version 2, and version 2 has some change in the consensus rules, but it's a soft fork change, which means that it doesn't break old clients that sit on the network. Now, that's a huge constraint in terms of what it allows you to do and what it does not allow you to do. So we feel that the BIP9 method of basically activating, tracking, and then ultimately locking in changes, that system is very it's a very well thought out system. So we've basically ported that to DCRD, our consensus daemon in Decred, and we will be using that so that instead of the way everything works with soft forks in Bitcoin is everything is based on the block version. We've added a second version that we call the stake version of a block. So there's the block version and then there's the stake version. And the reason for doing this is that both of these things serve to signal something is happening. In the case of hard fork voting, the way we do it is that when a stake version bumps, so stake version is like a block version, but it has it says more about the network. It says that the proof of work miners are upgraded and the proof of stake miners are upgraded sufficiently. I could go into the percentages, but I don't think it's going to be super illuminating. It means that the proof of work miners and the proof of stake miners have upgraded enough to get to the point where we can start voting on some new set of changes which are encoded in vote bits. So the idea there is that once everyone signals that they're upgraded, that is that they're running the latest consensus daemon, then they can start voting to go, let's say we put 3 issues on the table. They can vote, yes for issue 1, no for issue 2, yes for issue 3. And then, basically those votes tally over a period. So once the stake version bumps, there is a period of approximately 4 weeks where votes are tallied. There's 5 votes in a block, and over a 4-week period, I want to say that's roughly 40,000 votes. So that instead of it being a snap voting system where when the stake version bumps, everybody votes all at once, it's the same system that there always is where there's 5 votes a block, but it's over a month-long period. So in a lot of ways, it's actually very similar to how paper ballots are done for voting in political elections or political races.
Okay. Now, what was my next thought? Oh, so is this kind of like I guess a smart contract that everyone's voting on, or I guess could it be interpreted that way, or like these are?
Okay, so these vote bits, the vote bits can really connect to anything. We could vote on what color people want the website to be. We could vote on whether we should shave somebody's cat, just for fun, or something like that. We could vote on literally anything. But the most interesting part of the voting is what we're trying to get to straight away. It's going to happen in the next 2 releases, which is that people can vote on consensus changes. And it's this, this is the sense in which it's hard fork voting as opposed to, say, soft fork voting or, what color should the website be voting. The votes can then, provided that your consensus daemon is updated, there will be changes to the consensus that are conditional based on whether these things are approved or not. So if they get approved, so at the end of a voting period, if 75% or more of people vote for a certain consensus change, it will happen after another lock-in period after that. So, there's the first period where everybody's voting. Then there's the period where everybody is, waiting for the lock-in to happen. Then at the lock-in point, people have to have upgraded at least to the version that they were voting with. So basically you have 2 months from when people start voting on things that could be a hard forking change to a hard fork actually occurring. And we did that on purpose so that people have a couple months to upgrade before they get hard forked off the network.
Okay, so it sounds like along with voting on protocol changes, you guys kind of have like a DAO structure built in, or at least a way for the actual organization, like the team, to be funded and actually have a method of, I guess, having user input from everyone with the currency, and miners as well, too, because miners can vote on should we shave so-and-so's cat too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's proof of stake miners are the only ones voting. I don't want to shave your cat, but it's just an absurd example, of course. I mean, I had a cat growing up for 22 years, so I thought about shaving my cat.
No, well, it sounds like there's a lot of similarities that can be drawn to something like Dash, where you have a DAO structure in place to manage a currency. Not just with protocol upgrades, but also have like so and so should be paid for media, or we should buy an advert, or we should pay for a new website. Those sorts of things are included as well in these protocol votes.
Yeah. I mean, we could encode pretty much anything into the vote bits, and the way I view this all is that this is a process. I mean, say in the context of Dash made a system that was very much a snap voting system. They have their master node network, and then they can, for example, if they want to make a hard fork vote, they can do it roughly instantaneously compared to Decred. But the reason we decided to make Decred the way we did is that we wanted it to be an ongoing thing. That is, if you're going to lock your coins, we figure that we want to sort of make it as accessible as possible, as opposed to there being a small number of master nodes. We have a large number of tickets, comparatively speaking, like by a factor of 20, whatever it is. I want to say it's like 4,000 master nodes versus 40,000 tickets. And it's very much voluntary. If you want to participate in the, in the decision making, you can. If you don't, you don't. And it is definitely similar to Dash, but what we're going to do in terms of building it out is we're going to build it out one piece at a time. We're going to build out the hard fork voting, and then we'll move on to the proposal system where people can make these proposals. Go, I want to change the website to make it more purple, or I want to dye my hair, or whatever it is. You can put those in the proposals, and then we'll move backwards one final layer to the decentralized control of the development organization funds. So we're going to build it out a piece at a time over 2017.
Now, what a lot of people in the chat are asking about is Company Zero. That's the actual, I guess, development company right now that is facilitating the upgrades of Decred.
Yeah. So I run and finance Company Zero. We have, initially as part of the airdrop, we put in roughly, $300,000 worth of developer time and other expenses into getting Decred ready to launch in February of 2016. And then, on an ongoing basis, because the exchange, even when the exchange rate was, at one of its higher rates, say $1.50 or, $1.90 US dollars, that wasn't enough to support the development work we're doing. I'm spending roughly $60,000 to $75,000 a month doing development work to build out the coin, because I recognize that if somebody doesn't do this work, it becomes a sort of tragedy of the commons. Like, why isn't anyone showing up to do this work? So I'm just building it out. as sort of a public service. And I'm not taking any payment from the development organization for that.
It's generous that you're in the position to do that and that you are showing up and doing it. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's thankful for that. So thanks.
Well, you're very welcome, and it's fun work. I mean, we like working with the community. We like doing stuff that's challenging. Now,
in terms of, I guess, the use case for Decred, because you're almost like a Bitcoin 2.0. Like you're the use case is value transfer, right? Like, or is there some other use case that you're hoping to have for this ledger?
The thought is that we will ultimately get into this game, the usual game. I mean, any cryptocurrency is a value transfer and storage mechanism at its core. So, you have to drive those things in terms of, adoption. You need people to use it as a store of value. You need people to use it as a means of transmitting that value. And, we're going to start pushing on that front, in the next month or so. It's really one of these things where, because we're trying to build out this other infrastructure, that it's difficult to juggle all the balls and be pushing on it as a payment network really hard while we're trying to do something interesting with the sovereignty aspects of it and sort of create what some people could call a digital state.
Okay, so would other developers use it as a smart contract platform as well, or like token hosting, or is there any other utility for the chain though?
We haven't really gotten into the colored coin loop, in the sense that I haven't seen a huge amount of utility on that front. It's definitely interesting, but I don't see it as something that's that's a huge utility booster. But in terms of the smart contracts, the thing that I think is most interesting, and I spoke about this in the roadmap, is that I think that the Lightning Network is by far the most interesting application of smart contracts to date, in the sense that it does something instantly tangible in a minimally complex way. It gets transactions off chain, and people can basically make instant transactions. Whereas, these other smart contracts are things like, well, you could do this, you could do that, and sure, you could do this. You could build a castle on the moon, but it's like, if no one's going to build a castle on the moon, it's just, who cares? And that's what I feel like separates the Lightning Network and the smart contracts it uses from some of these other, smart contract systems. They're just so general that it all kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. Another question from the chat here from Juror. Are you guys planning on adding privacy or anonymity attributes to the network, like hiding of transactions of some sort?
Indeed, we are. But it was a very conscious decision we made when we were developing Decred and we launched it, is that, we're privacy nuts. I mean, like, for example, you'll never see me with video streaming from my computer unless I'm talking to you guys. So I'm usually I'm the person who cuts all the cameras and microphones out of their computers and so on. And so privacy and security really matter to me. But competing with projects that really focus on privacy, such as Monero or Dash or Zcash, doing that out of the box is just not going to happen. I mean, we can't develop a novel sovereignty system at the same time as developing a novel privacy system. Got to kind of take these like sub projects one at a time. But we do have plans to make strides in this direction. But I can't really bleed any details on that, because then it's not an ambush.
I think we'll go to our live audience. Maybe if the guys in the basement there, you have any questions on Decred? I know you joined a little late, but if you need anything clarified, please speak up.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Anyone have a question?
Tastefully silent. All right.
I will have just a comment. Having bumped into a Nigerian community that's very interested in cryptocurrencies and just blockchain technology, they're very interested in participating in the consensus. of Bitcoin, which is out of reach for most people. I think Decred has a real niche in that area that you could stake on a mobile device, or you could, use a stake pool to provide consensus to the network and not have to be, as somebody was saying, the Chinese factory in the bush.
Yeah, I mean, if people, part of the reason we designed the system the way we did is that what's becoming increasingly clear to me as a pattern, not just within cryptocurrencies, but in terms of like foreign policy and global politics, is that we live in a multipolar world. Expecting that say the U.S. will be able to tell everybody what to do all the time forever is not a reasonable expectation. So instead of really trying to push in one direction in that sense, we like the idea of trying to meet in the middle with everybody, so everybody has a say. So if a bunch of Chinese people and Russians and Nigerians all want to get together and make decisions collectively, we can facilitate that. So I do think sort of reaching out and branching out into places like Nigeria could be an interesting opportunity in terms of sharing the sovereignty with with people who are interested like that.
And just that's something that's not possible with existing chains today. The mining and having the resources to do a proof of work system alone, it's not feasible for a lot of people. And proof of stake really allows people to participate and have a voice in the network, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited for the hard fork voting to commence, because I'll be frank, being in charge is exhausting. Anyone who's been in charge for a long period of time, it is draining. Like, day in, day out, people are like, well, what about this? And it's like, oh, well, now I have to help out with this decision. And if you have people to share the load, I think we make better decisions collectively than we will independently. If you make me make 100 decisions, I guarantee I'm going to screw some of them up.
Very true. With regards to going back to proof of work, though, was there a reason you guys went with the algorithm Blake? I know it's kind of there was a spur of them back in 2014, but then I think they kind of died off a bit, and now you're I guess the first kind of more higher level or higher market cap Blake coin we've seen. So care to comment on the choice of the selection of that algorithm?
Sure. So there was a decent reason for this. So we have two types of algorithms, right? There's the Bitcoin, the double SHA-256, which has been beat to death, and there's a million ASICs for, right? And then there is, on the other end, there's things that don't run well on CPUs, like Monero's Crypto Night, and these I think it's like the X11 protocol from Dash, and these other sort of CPU centered things that require you to have like an L2 cache or whatever, so that you can't grind it out on a GPU as quickly. So there's these two ends to the spectrum, and what we decided was is that if you went with the double SHA-256, what it's going to do is the existing people who already have all kinds of influence and control in Bitcoin are just going to flip on their miners and mine the hell out of Decred. So we were like, okay, we don't want that. Then we went to the other side and we said, for these more CPU intensive, proof of work algorithms, on the other hand, what happens is that if it's super CPU intensive, people who say have a giant botnet under their control end up having an enormous amount of sovereignty, because they just I got 50,000 PCs that I grind on all day, and then you mine tons of coins. So we didn't want to enable the botnet people either. So we wanted to meet in the middle and do something that works on a GPU but doesn't have an ASIC. So Blake 256 ended up being what we thought was a good enough choice.
Well, and from what I've heard, it's one of the more, I guess, efficient algorithms, and it has a lot more like merge mining capabilities. Like it could be one of the next, I guess, candidates for an ASIC to be built if there was a market for it, because it's very, I guess, robust algorithm that can is very friendly for an ASIC to be built on. The other interesting part, though, I guess, is with regards to Ethereum mining being on GPUs. I guess one thing that's kind of come out recently was merge mining or dual mining with Decred. So it's kind of like the Ethereum miner and the Decred miner fill different parts of the workload for a GPU, so you can actually mine both at once. So I found that was kind of a really interesting coincidence that you can get far more capability out of a GPU by having Blake exist alongside the Ethereum.
Dagger, Hashimoto.
The Hashimoto, yeah. So I guess any comments on that happy coincidence?
That was indeed a happy coincidence. Like so your comments about ASICs, we did choose Blake 256 because we knew that it could be turned into it could be implemented on an ASIC without a huge amount of difficulty. But at the same time, we just wanted to choose an algorithm where they didn't exist and it wasn't horribly energy inefficient, just like you pointed out. And the way, I think it's the Claymore dual miner that you're referring to.
Yep.
That was just a total coincidence. When that showed up, I was like, wow, where did all this hash power come from? And it was just, basically people who were sort of happily opportunistically mining.
Yeah, all the Ethereum miners squeezing a little bit of extra profitability out of the slight amount of untapped resources in their GPU rigs. So I was wondering, this kind of ties into what somebody in the chat was saying too, like there may have been a little bit of downward price pressure once all these Ethereum first miners kind of figure that out. This is just kind of extra return on investment for them. They may not have been cognizant of what Decred is, other than another token to
get them more ETH.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely got the sense that there was some opportunism going on with the mining. It's interesting how the dynamics of the markets and the mining work, where it's just you don't know exactly what why people are mining, and then just sometimes people will dump on them on exchanges, and you have to just guess as to what's really going on.
A lot of cryptocurrency traders just assume that miners dump indiscriminately, and they do. I mean, I have a background in mining, and I have dumped indiscriminately and then kick myself for it, and then sometimes also not kick myself for it until months after the fact. So yeah, it's at least it gets people, I guess, aware of the project, and day-to-day price action. At the end of the day, it all just becomes a line on the chart anyway. What really matters is the development driving ahead, I think.
Totally.
So I remember hearing some interesting conversation on, I guess, more of a competition between the proof of work miners and the proof of stake stakers. So there's almost, I guess, the game theory of both are like you have people want to accumulate more coins in order to have control of the network, but then you also have the proof of the proof of work want to have the most hash rate for control. So this competition, I guess, really feeds the economics of the chain, right?
Yeah, there's definitely. I mean, for example, when we set the sort of the split of each block subsidy, where we did 60% proof of work, 30% proof of stake, 10% dev subsidy. And the reason we did that is because, with proof of stake, all you need is a computer, right? You just got a normal computer or a stake pool, and then boom, 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 you can mine as long as you lock your coins. You don't need special hardware for that. Whereas, the people who do proof of work have to buy GPUs or ASICs or whatever kind of infrastructure to get that going. So we figured we'd give them a little bit more, but, in terms of the competition, there's definitely factors to this. That is that, proof of work miners have a decision to make. They have to go, should I sit and just keep staking this and continue to make residuals, or should I dump it and make my money straight away? And so it creates an interesting dynamic where I think that if we didn't have the proof of stake component, the proof of work miner, there'd be a lot more downward pressure on the price from the proof of work miners.
That's good though, because you've got a dynamic where the proof of work miners have to give away Decred in order to make their real life running cost commitments. And you've got a counteracting mechanism within proof of stake where people are driven to acquire and hold. So you're going to reach an equilibrium. Even if you change something down the road, it just readjusts to a new equilibrium because you have the two opposing forces in place. So it's actually pretty well concocted for that. And at least you know that apart from shocks to value, like you building and releasing a new feature or creating a new merchant partnership or something like that, that equilibrium is always going to be quickly stabilizing the price at wherever it's going to move to. So in terms of that, it's actually a good thing, I think.
Yeah. There's definitely a stabilizing effect from the proof of stake, and that was kind of intentional. Where we wanted people to be able to do something with their coins other than sit them at the exchange and gamble all day. We wanted people to be able to do something where they could grind out a steady return. And I feel like, to some extent, that's a function of, what's happened with, returns at banks and, central bank policies of just printing money willy-nilly. Because you can't go to a bank and deposit your money and get a decent return on it, we figured, the proof of stake mechanism to some extent is sort of a return to form, for having a nice passive way for you to grind out returns without, going and betting on the stock market.
Now, is there any, risk of the stakers kind of invalidating blocks for the miners? Like that's kind of what I was hinting at before with control of the network. Like if stakers wanted to, they could, have a bias against a certain miner. Say there was a pool that wasn't decreasing its amount of share, like it was at 40%, kept climbing. They're say, well, you know what? We're going to vote that none of those block rewards are going to be valid. No blocks can come from that miner. Is there kind of, that competition there, or that risk of, misconsensus? That's a word.
Sure. Yeah. So the way we refer to that is as what is it? An invalidation of the prior block. And the scenario where that happens is as follows. You need to have 3 out of 5 or greater votes against the prior block. So basically, in each block, the votes apply to the previous block. So if of the 5 votes in the current block, if 3 or more of them are no against the previous block, that is if 60% of people on a given block or greater say no to the previous block, then the previous block's proof of work subsidy is invalidated. So if this was put in to basically hedge against the problems that occur in Bitcoin, where basically proof of work miners can, for example, mint empty blocks and they still go on chain, and it's basically a denial of service attack against the chain. But say in Bitcoin, there's no mechanism to for people to fight back against this. Whereas in Decred, you can kick somebody in the shins if they're not doing what you want.
Can I ask some questions on that?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you're saying that as a user of the network, and I create a transaction and it goes in a block, it's possible that even after that block is mined, it can be unmined by the stakers, and then I need to create another transaction?
That can happen. So, for example, if the regular transactions in a block are invalidated, so that's the previous block that's invalidated. So in the current block, they get invalidated. What happens then is that those transactions that were invalidated, you do not need to rebroadcast them. Those get kicked back out into the mempool so that they get remined, not in basically 2 blocks later.
But there's no guarantee of a remine, right? Like a conflicting transaction could get mined instead.
Yes, that could happen. You are correct. That could happen, but basically the amount of coordination required to invalidate a block, like basically somebody's got to really have upset the stake miners in order to get a block invalidated. So it is a potential scenario, but it's a very unlikely to hit corner case.
Bitcoin has reorgs too. 1 or 2 blocks get reorged occasionally.
true.
Sorry, Kiko, didn't catch that.
Just saying, Bitcoin has reorgs too for like 1 or 2 blocks deep. Happens occasionally.
Yeah, exactly. Where stuff gets kicked out of the reorg blocks, and then if it doesn't make it into the blocks that it reorged to, they're back in the mempool.
Those fees are back up for grabs. Yeah.
So I'm just going to the live chat here to see if they have any final questions, as I'm kind of running out. But no, this has been a great chat. Do you guys have, what are your plans, I guess, for 2017, and what do you hope to achieve?
Well, my hopes for 2017 is that we would get the major components of the DAO complete. That is, hard fork voting is on the horizon. I expect that hard fork voting will be working on the next. It'll be working as of the next release, but we have to wire up like the user interface pieces so that there's like a nice menu for people to select and vote on things. So that basically hard fork voting will go live with useful changes to vote on in 2 releases. Then there will be a proposal system that follows that, a month or 2 later. That one will be much quicker than the hard fork voting work. Then after that, we'll start discussing how to decentralize control of the DevOrg funds. And my read is that all of that can be completed in 2017. Then further, what we'll be doing is that there's a number of ongoing things in terms of, staffing and marketing and development work that'll be going on throughout 2017. I believe we'll be able to integrate the Lightning Network in 2017. I mean, what would be really pretty amusing to me is if it happens in Decred before it does in Bitcoin, based on how low the SegWit adoption rates are currently for Bitcoin. And then we'll start talking about privacy in another probably 6 months. I think those are the high notes. And then we're gonna also start focusing more on actually integrating people and getting transmission and store of value applications rolling along, because we have neglected those to date. We need to get merchant adoption and all that stuff going. But that's those are the broad strokes for 2017, and I believe all of that is tangible in 2017. We might be able to get more done, but it depends on what everybody else does and what people help us out with.
Okay, a good question from the chat here is, are you looking for outside funding as your run rate is pretty high?
I am not. I have the ability. I can run this race for a long time. So if there isn't pay, I can do this for a while longer. But my plan is in the near future is to start basically paying Company Zero from the DevOrg fund at a reduced rate, because there's no way that they can that the DevOrg can't pay the full rate that the full burn rate for the dev work that's being done. But I expect that if the exchange rate changes, that could very well change as well.
Now, you talked about getting merchant adoption. Is there any sort of, I guess, plans to somehow be like maybe an intermediary for a bank of some sort, like for I guess a bank to have like a fluid transfer of assets between two locations? Is that kind of, I guess, another aspect, or are you only looking for consumer sales kind of point of sale sort of scenarios?
I'm open to pretty much anything, as long as people need to transfer value or store value. We're open to integrating pretty much anything. We won't be super picky about this. If you want to be if a bank wants to use this system for value transfer, that's great. We'll help integrate it. And if somebody who sells mangoes in the rainforest does it, we can help them too. So the scale or the particular markets that we'd be integrating, we're not very picky.
All right, cool. So I guess on that note, we have a little exit bit that we always do here, where we try and predict the price of Bitcoin in 1 week's time. So I got the chart pulled up here, and as you can see, we have some relative stability coming in. Jake, I'll start with you on what do you think the Bitcoin price is going to be next Saturday at 9 p.m.?
Let me have a look at where we're at right now.
Currently $817 on Bitstamp is what we use.
I am gonna guess that it's gonna be $850 next week.
850. All right, fairly solid.
Yeah, it seems to be getting stronger now that the Chinese exchanges have turned off margin trading. So it seems to be on a slow, steady uptick. So my feeling is that it'll fight back some of the gains that it had recently.
Yeah, no, and I think the not having naked shorting of Bitcoin probably will help with that too. That was a bit of an issue of Chinese traders borrowing Bitcoin that doesn't exist, stuff like that.
I thought that was a time-honored tradition at the exchanges.
It appears so. Derek, do you have any predictions for the price of Bitcoin?
I think it's going to hold strong around here, maybe 830.
830. And not so fast. What do you think?
My prediction is going to be completely self-serving at this point because I'm going to have some fiat to dump to Bitcoin next week, so I want it low. So I want it starting with a 7, so I'll do 795. Please and thank you.
Nice. Yeah, I think I'm gonna be even almost a little lower than that. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go 770. All right. And Decontrol, our awesome live audience there. Do you guys have any predictions?
841 from Kiko.
841. All right.
I got skin in this game. Yeah.
You got skin.
Yeah, I think everyone's working orders now. Sorry, any other predictions from there?
789 from Aaron.
Aaron, all right. 779?
89.
Oh, 89. Okay. Cameron, you want in on this?
He's left the room, but Taylor will say 880.
Taylor. 880.
There's no. Is there any downside to incorrectly predicting this?
We should do that.
Public shame. Public shame.
Yeah, I'd like to chase down everyone, and try and get $5 to put on that, but
I think we need a smart contract for this.
This is just our pseudo prediction market. A spread of where we think the Bitcoin price is going to go. No, this is good. This is a great chat, Jake. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I guess if anyone wants to learn more about Decred, where should they go?
They should go either to the, our Slack chat is very active. Everyone's very helpful there. They could go to the forum, or they can go to the website, which is, decred.org. And the forum is forum.decred.org.
I'll also pitch the UBEX Slack in the link below. We run a stake pool. If you guys have any questions, as we like to help with the leadership burden of helping out with tech support, feel free to join in and learn a little more. Thanks to our sponsor, Bittrex, who's got an awesome Decred market for trading. And everyone else, thank you for tuning in. And we'll see you sometime in the next 1,000 blocks.
Pleasure.